Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. 12-team playoff. Let's get into who I think is in regardless. First of all, we have the 5 automatic bids, okay? Remember, 5 highest rated conference champions are going to get in. And again, it is almost certain at this point. There was a thought the AAC, if Tulane kept winning, could they get one of the bids? That's pretty much out of the question at this point. And so we have the 5 conference champions. The SEC champ is going to get in, whether it's Texas or Georgia. The Big Ten champ is going to get in, whether it's Oregon or Penn State. The ACC champ is going to get in, whether it's SMU or Clemson. The Big 12 champ is going to get in, whether it's Arizona State or Iowa State. And the Mountain West champ will almost certainly get in, whether it is UNLV or Boise. Obviously, we don't yet know the seedings. Only the first 4 highest rated conference champions get first round buys. Beyond those 5 teams, though, so those are 5 teams that are going to be in. Big 10 champ, SEC champ, ACC champ, Big 12 champ, Mountain West champ. In. Boom. Number 6 in terms of teams that I think are going to get in. Big 10 champ is going to get in, or the Big 10 runner-up, is going to get in. Whether it's Penn State or Oregon, both teams are going to be in. And it's not because, we have to give the runner-up a spot in the college football playoff. I think both those teams have deserved it. Oregon is obviously the only undefeated team left in college football. I don't see there is no scenario where even if they lose this game by 100, they're going to get in, and they'll actually probably be the 5 seed if they get in. Penn State, I know they have the loss to Ohio State. I know that they would have a loss to Oregon, but Penn State is finished the regular season 11-1. We can criticize James Franklin. They took care of everybody on their schedule, and they are going to get into the playoff no matter what. So the number 6 team, in my opinion, that is in after the 5 conference champs is the Big Ten runner-up. The number 7 team that I believe is going to be in, regardless of what happens going into this weekend, I do think it's probably the SEC runner-up as well. Now, Texas, they're at 11-1. They're going to get in no matter what. Now, there will be an argument if Georgia loses in the SEC championship, they would be a 3-loss team. And my prediction, this is Torres's bold prediction, one of the talking points late Saturday of next week, if Georgia loses, there are going to be some that sit there and say, well, wait a second now. Ole Miss and Alabama will be out of the SEC SEC championship picture, but they will both have 3 losses as well. They also both have head-to-head wins over Georgia. And so there will be an argument, how can you put in Georgia with 3 losses over Alabama or Ole Miss that also have 3 losses, and Alabama and Ole Miss have head-to-head wins? Now, where I would counter is, 1, the committee has said they will not punish teams for making the conference championship. If you were in before the conference championship, you're going to stay in. But 2, they're going to have that 10th win. And I have 1 more win. They're not going to be punished for playing a really good Texas team that they've already beaten. So regardless of what happens, I believe Georgia will be in as well, or Texas if they are the SEC runner-up. So that's 7 teams right there. 5 conference champs, Big 10 runner-up, SEC runner-up. Number 8, and I got to give them credit, they're better than I thought they were. Notre Dame Fighting Irish, okay? Notre Dame, to me, is a very impressive team, okay? Like we talked about it on the college football betting show. You understand that basically, statistically, they have not only a great defense, they have like one of the most underrated defenses that we've seen in a long time in college football, okay? They are currently, as we speak, number 2 in turnover margin. They are number 1 in total forced turnovers with 28. They are number 2 with 17 total interceptions, including 2 pick sixes against USC. Oh, by the way, number 1 pass defense in college football. Number 1 fewest yards allowed. Great defense. I actually think they're probably a little bit better than people think, but they're 11-1. The hay is in the barn. They have no conference championship. I think it's not out of the realm of possibility that depending on how things go this weekend, they could actually get that number 5 seed, which, as you've heard other people in college football media talk about, in some ways getting the 5 seed is maybe even better than getting the 4 seed. But I bring it up because I think Notre Dame is number 8. Again, along with the Big Ten. Let me say Notre Dame is number 8. Number 9, another team that I believe has clinched an automatic bid or clinched an at-large bid already, even though they won't play next week. It is the Tennessee Volunteers. Okay. Rocky Top, Tennessee, baby. And I'll tell you, they were concerned when there was all that quagmire with a bunch of 2-loss teams. But Ole Miss loses, Alabama loses. Obviously, when they lost to Georgia, I think there was some concern. Could we be on the outside looking in? Listen, they beat Vandy. They take care of business. They do what they have to do. They're 10-2. Obviously, look, a loss at Georgia isn't going to hurt them. I don't even think a loss at Arkansas, which is bowl eligible, is going to hurt them. So to me, Tennessee is the number 9 team that I have in. The 5 conference champs, the Big Ten runner-up, the SEC runner-up, Notre Dame, Tennessee. Those are my 9 so far. Number 10, a school that we talked about plenty on today's Aaron Torres pod, that, of course, is the Ohio State Buckeyes. Listen, we can criticize Ryan Day. We can criticize them for losing to Michigan, and they should be criticized. It doesn't change the fact that they are 10-2, and they have 2 phenomenal wins at Penn State and also Indiana at home. We can make fun of Indiana. We can make fun of this. We can make fun of that. It does not change the fact that, remember, both those teams are going to be ranked in the top 10 going into the final week. Ohio State, even at 10-2, is not going to get left out of the playoff. Now, the conversation could be, will they be one of the teams that hosts a playoff game or goes on the road? I've seen that as of right now, most projections have them on the road, ironically, at Tennessee. That remains to be seen, but Ohio State is going to get in. The 11th team that I believe has clinched a college football playoff berth coming out of this weekend, it's the Indiana Hoosiers. And I know Coach Cignetti gets under so many people's skin. Okay, listen, I get it. I actually love him. I think he's awesome. I think he's fun. I think he's whatever. But he gets under a lot of people's skin. And I know what everyone's going to say. Indiana has no great wins. First off, we're not leaving out an 11-1 Big Ten team. We're just not doing it. The Big Ten has too much power, too much say, too much control. It's not going to happen. But here's my counter to Indiana not having great wins. Unlike Tennessee, unlike Ole Miss, unlike Alabama, unlike Ohio State, not only does Indiana have no bad losses, they basically destroyed everybody on their schedule. And to me, that does matter, right? You have no bad losses and you destroy everybody. Yeah, if there was a bunch of 11-1 or 10-2 at-large candidates, then yeah, Indiana might be on the outside looking in. But there aren't. And because of it, I think Indiana is at number 11. Now, really quickly, before we get out of here, I will just say very quickly, that 12th spot is going to be absolutely fascinating because I think there are a number of different teams that could have a legitimate argument for the final at-large spot going into the final week. First off, I think it's worth noting the ACC runner-up, if it is in fact SMU. SMU, remember, is 11-1 right now. They'd be 11-2. Their only other loss would be to a top 20 BYU team. But if SMU makes the ACC championship game and loses, I think they'd at least be in consideration. Now, it's kind of worth noting BYU has a head-to-head win, so BYU would kind of argue, why wouldn't we get in as a 2-loss team? But I think SMU would have a legitimate gripe if they were left out. The counter to that, Clemson, because of the loss to South Carolina, I think they're out of the at-large conversation. I think the only way that Clemson can get into the playoff, they have to win the ACC championship game. We'll see if it happens, but that's the only way, in my opinion, that they get in. And then after that, you got a bunch of 3-loss SEC teams. You got Alabama at 9-3. You got South Carolina at 9-3. You got Ole Miss at 9-3 as well. And I'll be honest, I don't know what the committee would possibly do there, because think about South Carolina. South Carolina is unquestionably the hottest team, not only out of those teams. South Carolina is one of the hottest teams in college football right now. I mean, they just beat Clemson. That's obviously a great win. We all know that. But on top of that, South Carolina, how about this? Over the final back half of the season, they have won 6 straight games. They just beat Clemson, beat Texas A&M, which of course should still be a top 25 win even after Texas A&M lost the other day. Their last loss was by 2 points against Alabama. I saw somebody bring this up on Twitter. I'd give them credit if I remembered who it was. But they said if the roles were reversed, if South Carolina had a head-to-head win over Alabama, but South Carolina took a bad loss late in the year like Alabama did, there is no way that Alabama would be left out on a 6-game win streak. So the point I'm trying to make, South Carolina is red hot, 6 straight wins. They're playing really well. Alabama and Ole Miss, of course, are 9-3 as well. They have some really high highs, including Georgia. including Georgia as a great win, but they have some bad losses as well. Obviously, Alabama has lost to Vandy and Oklahoma late in the year. And then, of course, Ole Miss lost to Kentucky, which was a very bad loss. I don't think LSU on the road is a terrible, terrible, terrible loss. And I don't think Florida is a terrible loss either, but it does. I do think it will impact them going forward. Listen, I think it's a little early, but if I had to handicap it, I would sit there and say probably the order. Alabama's probably at the top. And I know people are going to get mad, but the truth is it's going to be hard to put in South Carolina with head-to-head losses over Ole Miss and Alabama. Just something to monitor going forward.